So I've got two remaining areas and not a great deal of time. I want to start with fugitive emissions, the great bulk of the forecast growth in emissions. Here he is. My understanding is the LNG export plant at Gladstone, both in emissions from energy required to extract and process the LNG, but also from fugitive emissions that arise from it. What measures are you taking to arrest the runaway emissions growth in the absence of a price, which would cost the companies money? Is there anything at all that you can tell us from a policy point of view?
So you don't want us to talk about the measurement of fugitive emissions or what the projections are saying? You want us to go to the policy issue of
policy of how we rein them in and deal with it. I'm presuming you're not contesting the fact that it's a large amount of, it's a large amount of carbon, a large amount of fugitive methane that goes into the air. So I don't have to worry about the calculation of it. But how are we going to rein it in? Is there anything in the policy instruments that you're now dealing with that would give us some confidence that that's being tackled?
I'll ask Mr Power to make some comments on the safeguard mechanism, the consultation around the safeguard mechanism, which is part of the emissions reduction fund, if you'd like.
Senator, in a broad sense, I'll just recap briefly what we traversed previously, which was that there was a number of elements of the safeguard mechanism that would apply, and the government's made some decisions on in the white paper, and has also then made some commitments to commence the safeguard mechanism by the 1st of July 2015. The safeguard mechanism in broad, whilst the government's still consulting on a number of elements of it, would place effectively some obligations on entities who increase their emissions above a particular baseline. One of the elements that the government is going to spend the rest of 2014 consulting on is how, for example, either new plants, that is plants who haven't either commenced production or commenced construction, be treated, but also how, for example, plants like those in Queensland that might have taken investment decisions and actually started construction but not producing yet are treated under that safeguard element of the policy.
There's two in WA that I guess would be in that category, yeah? Onslow and Gorgon. They're under construction.
Yeah, that's right. So, as I said, and one of the elements that was actually flagged in both the green paper and the white paper is the way in which those plants that haven't actually commenced production yet don't have historical data, for example. They don't have data on which to measure their previous performance. And the government set out that for new investments, a best practice type approach would be taken, okay. And also flagged that for those, a different approach could be considered for those who have actually taken their final investment decisions but yet haven't commenced production.
All right. Maybe just to cut this short, because I'm going to change the subject in a moment, could you table your most recent data on the large LNG projects that are coming online in Australia in the next decade, and their expected impact on our national emissions profile? It's a small number of plants. It's a very large greenhouse impact. And I'm just wondering if you could put for us what you anticipate, and this would have been a big issue for the previous government, so it's not a political question, your expectation of what business as usual emissions from these plants would be, specifically LNG, and what the expected profile would be under direct action or any other measures that you bring into bear.
Well, certainly, Senator, we can take on notice our information that underpins the projections. We were talking about them earlier, the 17% growth, but we'll take on notice how we construct estimates for fugitives and for energy use in those plants and those types of things. Yeah. As to the question of policy, that's a matter for the Parliamentary Secretary might.
No, sorry, I'm not quite asking what the government's policy is. I think we've got a reasonable idea. It's given the policy tools that you've got to work with and those that have been taken off the table, what do you expect the impact on those business as usual emissions will be? So it's not a political question, it's what's going to be done.
The difficulty is that the safeguards mechanism has been discussed and negotiated and worked through at the moment. So that's not finalised, and this is in reference to the safeguards mechanism.
So we don't know that either.
Well, I think, Senator, I mean, the officials will have taken on notice and will answer that which they are able to from your questions. It also, of course, is important to bear in mind that it's all well and good to single out a sector in terms of their contribution to the overall emissions profile, but what matters in terms of meeting the abatement challenge is that overall profile. One sector may go up markedly over that period of time because of increased activity in that sector, but if reductions are achieved elsewhere, then that means the target can, of course, still be met. So the officials will do their best to answer what they can out of the questions you've asked. Right. But isolating how much growth may be occurring in emissions from one single sector might be informative for the issues you're seeking to pursue there, but it's not really providing the full picture that the emissions projections that will be released later this year as part of the regular annual cycle will provide.
All right. Okay. Nonetheless, thanks for taking that on board. Thank you, Chair.